Engineering?
Absolutely. I have a DEng, a doctorate of engineering that I got in 2013.
That's too crazy. That's too crazy. And what was you taught you did teach at an HBCU or do you still
I'm
teach there?
still I'm still teaching at a HBCU. In fact, I just got out of class. Literally, I teach a signal systems and transformations class. So I teach three core classes over at Morgan State University in the School of Engineering. And so I that's what I do full time. I'm a full time lecturer over in the School of Engineering at Morgan.
Well, shout out to Morgan. I know so many, I happen to know a lot of really smart black people who teach at Morgan. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, you know
Seriously.
Dr. Ray Wimbush, he's over there. A lot
I
of our
never
scholars.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't know. You have to introduce me to them. The people I know are like random people. They're
Okay.
not nobody knows who they are. I just happen to know them. But I was like, I feel like keep meeting all these people at Morgan. That means I got so God is trying to tell me something. He's telling me I need to go visit, hang out.
Come up
So
there. We would love to have you, Doc. You got to come through there. I would love for you to come up there and speak to the class.
we
I
gonna
would
do
I
it.
would love it. I would love it.
All right. So what do y'all think in the chat? Y'all think I should go? Give me a yes if you think I should go to Morgan, and give me a yes if some of y'all might come up there and support and hang out. Let me know if we roll through more.
Yeah.
Should we go and just rock that campus? Just
Come
just
on, pull
wake
up.
wake some people up.
I like and look in the words of the young folks, pull up. You know how they say pull up, pull up.
That's right. We're gonna pull up. I'm gonna pull up like Snoop did in Baby Boy. There we go. Oh, so let's start there. You and I, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. First off, Dr. Ma'at does extraordinarily good content, and she is
Thank you,
incredibly
Doc.
talented at what she does. We gave her an award at the All Black National Convention. You said you had it. There we go.
Oh, right here.
Yes,
Oh, this is one of the
yes.
most I'm tired, one of the happiest moments of my life.
It was well deserved, well earned. We didn't even give you nothing. I mean, you earned every bit of that because you're dedicated to our people, and that's something that, as you all know, that's yeah, that can be tough to do because not everybody's on the same page.
Yes,
And
sir.
Dr. Ma'at, not only are you dedicated to our people, but you are well qualified in STEM. You're doing extraordinary work with our young people in STEM and I want to start there with a question about something I just saw. I saw a lady, and I didn't verify the stats, but it didn't
Mhm.
sound completely off base just because I've seen what's happening like in Chicago public schools and other places.
Mhm.
And she claimed that only 3% of Black graduating seniors are even qualified mathematically to pursue a career in STEM. That it's gotten that bad that only 3%, 97% of them couldn't even go into STEM, at least with the skills that they have at that point, because the school system has betrayed them so badly, or something's betrayed them. I don't know if it's the schools. I don't want to blame anybody, but it's or the teachers. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just saying that these kids are coming out and they just ain't ready. Have you observed anything like that? What are your thoughts?
At Dr. Watkins, that is 1,000% correct. We're seeing that on the collegiate level. It's not that our children can't successfully matriculate through a STEM program. They can do it, they're just not being prepared to do it. And that is why my team and I, we started, that's a part of one of the reasons why we started Conscious Ingenuity, to make sure that our children have those skills so they can successfully matriculate through any STEM program. So that teacher was 1,000% correct. Most of our children, by the time they finish high school, they don't even get past algebra 2. In order to be successful in STEM, when you get to college, we want you to place in math 241, which is calculus 1. So in order for, and I'm not saying if you don't take calculus in high school, I'm not saying if you don't take calculus in high school, you're not going to be, you're not going to successfully matriculate through a STEM program. The highest math that I took was trig. And that's because Dr. Watkins, speaking candidly to you and your audience, I went to Polytechnic, which is a STEM focused school. At that particular time, we in Baltimore now, so I'm coming out there, I'm fighting and doing all kinds of stuff. They kicked my butt right out of that school, and they end up putting me in my zone school, Woodlawn, and I finished there. And at Woodlawn, the highest math that I took was trig. And so when I got into the program at Morgan, I was behind, but I wanted to catch up. And I had a really, really good support system of professors, peers, my family who said, you can do this. And so I just stuck with it. And it took me some time. I had to go to school during the summer. I had to go to school during the winter break, but I was able to catch up with my peers. A lot of our children get frustrated in college, and 40% of our children, Black students, change their major from STEM majors to non-STEM majors. So they leave
Mhm.
engineering and they go, and I'm not throwing daggers at anybody else's major, but they'll say, oh, doc, engineering is not for me. I'm going to go down to the School of Business where they're teaching, information technology, which is less technical. I'm
Mhm.
hearing now they have these cybersecurity classes in the School of Business now, so it's taking students away from the School of Engineering, because now these students are like, I can't get past the math. I keep failing calculus. I keep failing statistics. And so,
Mhm.
yes, that teacher's 1,000% correct in saying that our children are unprepared. And let me say another thing, Dr. Boyce Watkins: reading comprehension. So at
Mhm.
that level, we're recognizing that our children are struggling in math, which is preventing them from successfully matriculating through the program. And we also see a lack of reading comprehension skills. I tell my students often that 95% of your job is going to require you to read. You have to
Yeah.
read the project description. You're going to have to read articles. You're going to have to do research, R&D, research and development. So our children are struggling with reading. So I tell all of my parents, please, parents, this is Dr. Ma'at begging you, please, if your child is interested in pursuing a STEM career, every day in your household, make sure your children are reading. I don't care if it's nonfiction or fiction. I don't care if it's a quick article, a novel. Make sure they read something every day and ask them questions about it. Have discussions to make sure that they're understanding what they're reading, okay? To strengthen their reading comprehension skills. And then make sure that they're doing math, okay? And there are plenty of tools. I want to definitely plug a brother by the name of Professor Akil Parker. This brother's out of Temple University. He has a YouTube channel called Histomatics, where he's teaching parents how to incorporate math in your everyday life. You could be riding down the street looking at a license tag number and say, add up all of those numbers, and just tell your child. So now you're working on addition, or you might say, multiply those first two numbers. So he teaches you how to incorporate math in your daily life. So you have Professor Akil Parker, you have Khan Academy, you have another software called Alex, Aleks. My son is on Alex every day. So these are things we could be doing at home to make sure that our children are prepared to pursue a STEM degree and career.
I really love that. I love that. It's funny when you talk about like that first calculus class you take as an engineer. I taught that class at University of Kentucky, and I remember it was specifically designed to be a weed out class. Like it was
Yes.
like we were gonna put them through hell, and whoever couldn't survive, you was gonna have to go home because we had too many people trying to be engineers. So they specifically told us, they said drill them. And it was so interesting because the funny thing, the inside joke on that class was whenever every semester there would be some kid or two or three that would come up to me and say, well, I just want you to know I already took this in high school, so I already know everything you're going to teach. And I would be like, oh, really? And I'd be thinking, oh, okay, so you're the one that's gonna fail out because
Yes.
you're walking in with the wrong attitude.
Yes.
And so but you are right. And then what would happen, and I was a business major, is I remember it was almost like the business school became kind of almost like this graveyard of broken dreams for all these kids that used to be engineers or used to want to be engineers, right? So they go to school of engineering, get their feelings hurt because that was the
Mhm.
side of campus where they really made you learn. Like they really, like you get a real skill as opposed to like no disrespect to my business management
No, no,
majors.
no, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, right, right. But it's kind of like it's a little fluffy. It's not specific. Whereas engineering's pretty intense. My friends that studied engineering were challenged, but the benefit though is that you're getting these skills in terms of logic and just the ability to really just process information in a special way. So when I got to my doctoral program in finance, the best students in our class a lot of times were the students who studied engineering in undergrad. I thought studying business would get me ready to get a doctorate in finance. No, if I could go back in time, I would have majored in engineering or math or some hard concrete science, not business school. So I was when you told me you had a PhD in engineering, I instantly respected that because I know how hard that is. Because you know how it is. You got a lot of people call themselves doctor this and doctor that, and it's like, yeah, that's cute. Whatever you do, that's real cute. But when you say you have a doctorate in engineering, I'm like, oh, okay, that's like somebody say, okay, I did 5 years in Rikers Island. Okay, you put in the work, you went through the fire. So tell me about that. Like, tell me about you in terms of just that process. What even led you to even pursue something? I imagine that your field was not just boiling over with Black women getting PhDs in
Not at
engineering.
all.
How did that happen for you?
Not at all. And great question, Doc. Two things I want to say. Sister Ann in the chat, she talked about STEM or STEAM. Me personally, if you go to my website, consciousingenuity.com, I have a double A in it. Science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, and mathematics. So I just wanted to be clear because she was like STEAM or STEM or so for me, I feel like as Black people, we need it all, right? So in order for us to advance ourselves, we need the art, we need the agriculture, we need the science, we need this technology, the engineering, the math. That's one thing. The second thing I wanted to say to you, Dr. Watkins, is you mentioned that going well, when you matriculate through like a STEM program, right? And now I'm intentionally saying STEM, right? So, to Miss Ann. So STEM program, you develop these skills that you necessarily did not develop. And those skill sets you talking about, Dr. Boyce Watkins, is critical thinking. I know that a lot of us feel like we're critical thinkers, but we think, but a lot of us don't understand that critical thinking it's a set of skills and it's something that you develop. It's not, I'm not saying that you can't develop it, but thinking, yeah, we have thoughts, some intentional, some not, but critical thinking is intentional. And see, a lot of us, when we enter college, we're used to operating at the lowest level of thinking, which is remembering. And that's what they teach us in the public school system. I'm sorry, the public school system. I'm sorry, Dr. Watkins. So they teach us to operate at the lowest level of thinking. So we remember things. We mimic everything. Just like a 5-year-old mimics things. You do this and the 5-year-old does that. That's how we're taught to operate. But when you get into
You got me
what?
cracking up. You did
No,
not
what
say
not.
public fool system.
I didn't
I'm
mean to
going.
say that. I
I'm
didn't mean
gonna
to say that.
remember that one.
I didn't
That's. Keep talking.
I didn't mean to say that, Doc. I meant to say the public school system. So we're taught to operate at the lowest level of thinking, which is remembering. You remember. So someone tells you something, you remember it, you repeat it, right? Engineering, science, math, and you have to, in order to be successful in those disciplines, you have to utilize higher order thinking skills. So we had to move from remembering to now we actually have to understand. Then we have to be able to apply what we understand. Then we have to analyze and evaluate what we did, right? And then if you reach the apex of those higher order thinking skills, we might create something new. We may innovate, but that requires higher order thinking skills that we necessarily did not develop as we matriculated through the K through 12 system. And so that's why when my students, I teach electric circuits class. That is the first electrical engineering class that the students take at the ECE program at Morgan. And I tell my students, this is going to be a painful course for you because it's going to require you to utilize skills that you necessarily have not developed. You're not incapable. Don't ever think that. But you did not, those skills weren't developed while you were going through the K through 12 process. So I tell them it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to be challenging a little bit, but you will be okay. So I wanted to say that to you, Dr. Wilkins and Dr. Watkins. And now I want to move into your question. How did I get into engineering, electrical engineering to be specific? I got to give props to my mother. Got to give props to my mom. When I graduated from Woodlawn, I wanted to major in history. I told her, I said, I'm going to school. I'm majoring in Africana studies. That's what I told her. And she said, baby, and my mother, she was a school teacher for, like 20 years in the system. And then she became assistant principal, then assistant to the area executive. So I come from a family of educators and also community activists. So no wonder what I'm doing, It's
Mm-hmm.
not, if anyone who knows my family, they would say, okay, I see why the sister is an educator and I see why she's a community activist. My
Mm-hmm.
father, he's a community activist, his side, community activism. My mother, educators. And hence you have me. So when I graduated from school, I wanted to become a history, a history teacher. And she said, baby, teachers don't make any money, baby. History, you're not going to make any money. So one day she came home with a magazine and it showed the top 10 paying majors. And at the top, it was computer engineering. And I said, well, my engineering is math and science. And she knew I was good in it. And I knew I was good in it. And so I said, well, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Because at that time, we just thinking about bringing more money into the household. So
Mm-hmm.
Morgan State had an open house. And I'll never forget, we got to the open house. And at that time, they only had electrical engineering. Now they offer electrical and computer engineering. And so we went to the open house and my mother fell in love with the school. She fell in love with the students, because of course, during open house, they showcase the freshmen and sophomore and juniors and seniors. And we walked the building. The building was beautiful. The labs were beautiful. She loved the staff. She loved all the opportunities. And my mother said, baby, you going here. And I said, yes, ma'am. So I get into my major, doc. And about 2 years into my major, I was like, Mom, I'm changing my major. I'm going to math. I'm going over to the math department. I'm out of here. And she said, no, you're going to stick with it. You're going to stick with it,
Mm-hmm.
baby. And I'm glad that I did. Because I developed skills that I necessarily didn't have, those critical thinking skills. And I learned to become a problem solver. And I realized that as an engineer, the skill set that I did acquire, I can apply that to anything that I choose to do.
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't always have to be in the context of technology, right? Or science and engineering and math. Anything. I can apply critical thinking problems. I can apply that to anything I put my mind to. And that's what I realized. And that's what engineering did for me. And so,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, decided to go back to Morgan, my alma mater, and teach in 2017. And so I started off as adjunct faculty, and then I was offered a full-time position to actually teach. And that was one of the best decisions I've ever made. A lot of my friends, they're in industry and they're making like twice the amount of money, three times the amount of money. And they're like, girl, you need to come over here to Northrop Grumman. You need to go over here to Lockheed Martin, or you could be at Boeing, or you could be at HP making 250,000 or 300. I want to be with my people. I love teaching our young people. I see what the problems are, and I'd rather be there and problem solving on behalf of our people than to be somewhere in corporate America.
Mm. Well, it's that's a great point you make, and great segue into this. Dr. Oya Maat, by the way, that's who is here, and you are would you say a professor of engineering at Morgan State?
Absolutely.
Is that your official title? Okay, and
Absolutely.
also, and then also, here's another thing too, Dr. Maat, that I admire, and why I think you can have it all. I think you can have the best of both worlds because you're not just a professor, you're also an entrepreneur, and you're doing all these other amazing, fulfilling things that you probably would have a harder time doing if you were at Northrop Grumman, right?
Yes.
They're not gonna let you do all this, right?
No.
So in my view, and in case you want to know, this we meet every morning. This is our financial consciousness training. And
Love
I'm
it.
sure you have your own definition of what it means to be conscious. I think consciousness definitely connects to even some of the skills you talk about in terms of critical thinking. I think the more critical thinking skill you have, the more conscious you become. You become aware of things.
Absolutely.
You understand how things work and all this, right? And we need consciousness to be at an all-time high for our people because there are so many games that are being played with us, so many traps being built for us, so many cages, that are designed to control us. And what I like about you being a critical thinker and being the scholar that you are is that you're very much aware of this. I mean, you've done some really great work lately. You and I are both big fans of the one and only Dr. Claude Anderson, and you
Yes.
have done some amazing work lately in terms of really highlighting the discussion on reparations and how critical thinking needs to be included in how we even process that. Can you kind of talk about that? Let's start. You start anywhere you want, but I'd love to get your take on where we are in the whole reparations conversation, and why we should even be demanding it in the first place. Let's start there.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Dr. Watkins. And I couldn't agree with you more when you said that to be conscious definitely um, includes, developing and operating with critical thinking skills. So you and I, our definitions are very, 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 very similar. But thank you for actually inviting me on to talk about reparations, or to contribute to the reparations discussion. Doc, that's something that should be at the top of our list of priorities as Black people. Reparations. That should be at the top. And I just want to reiterate that. That should be at the top of our priorities. I was reading the book some years ago. Salute to Nana, Dr. Amos Wilson. I'm a huge fan of his work. Dr. Amos Wilson wrote a book, 868 pages, called Blueprint for Black Power. And
Yes.
when I say that I studied along with the group, and guys, you can go to YouTube, type in RAM, the RAM Book Club, and type in Blueprint for Black Power discussions. And we discussed every chapter. We met every Sunday for 8 months, and for 2 hours just studied, Dr. Amos Wilson's work. And in that book, Dr. Amos Wilson made it clear that most of our social issues are tied to our economic issues.
Mm.
We have to get our finances in order. People talk about, politicians and politics. Well, goodness, if we had some money, Doc, we could influence these, Claude Anderson say, he talks about this ladder. I love Dr. Claude Anderson. He talks about that ladder. He says, get your economics together. You move up to the next level. You can go buy a politician that's going to do what you want him or her to do. So we have to get our finances in order. So how do we do that? Reparations. And some of you are naysayers, oh, Dr. Mott, we ain't going to do that. That's a pipe dream. No, it's not a pipe dream. People have sued for reparations and have gotten it. Okay. People have done it. I always encourage folks who are naysayers, Dr. Watkins, to just Google people like Belinda Sutton. This was a sister. She was born in West Africa. She was captured and sold into slavery before she was 12. And she was enslaved by a family in Massachusetts called the Royal Family. But the Royal Family, their assets got seized because they were loyalists. So the government found out that they were loyalists. So they seized their property, and they also manumitted their enslaved people. And Belinda was one of them. So you can go online and just Google Belinda petition. She actually signed a petition. She petitioned the government for what we would consider now reparations, and she did it multiple times. And so this woman is really, this is the first known case of a free person obtaining financial reparations for slavery. You also have another sister, Kylie House. She started an entire movement. She helped to found an entire movement called the National Ex-Slave Mutual Relief Bounty and Pension Association. And she was able to get over 300,000 members who actually paid dues. And so this was the first mass reparations movement that was led by us in this country. Now, they did get her for mail fraud and they imprisoned the Dr. Watkins, but people sued. I just want people to know that it's doable, that we can do it, because you have a lot of folks, Doc, who don't feel, they have that self-defeating mentality. Oh, we're not going to do it. We can do it. And then you had other groups of people, who got reparations. There was other groups of people. You had the Japanese, the Native Americans. You had the survivors of police abuses in Chicago, victims of forced sterilization, the Black residents of Rosewood in Florida. They got reparations. So it's possible we can get it. So to answer your question, Doc, because your initial question, you said, what are reparations? And, just defining it, what is it? And why should we get it? Why should we get it? And the definition that I take is from Dr. Darity. Dr. Sandy Darity in his book.
Yeah.
Oh man, I got his book on my shelf, Doc. And I was trying to
I
get my
never
little
I
books
never met
together.
him, but I've admired his work for a long
Oh,
time.
what was the name of the book? I feel so bad. Oh, From Here to Equality. From
Mm.
Here to Equality, reparations for Black Americans in the 21st century. And I hope I didn't butcher it. Family, throw it in the chat. Google Dr. William Darity's book. Throw the correct title in the chat if Dr. Ma'at butchered it. But I feel like it's From Here to Equality. reparations for Black Americans in the 21st century. And he talks about how reparations is redress, is repair from the atrocities that occurred. Dr. Watkins, that's what it is. And it was a lot of things that happened. It's not just slavery. I know a lot of people like, oh, it's slavery. It's not just slavery. It's slavery and everything that came at it. It's slavery. And as Dr. Claude Anderson says, it's semi-slavery. Jim Crow was semi-slavery. It was slavery. Then you had systemic racism. You had policies that were passed that created this enormous racial wealth gap. So Dr. Darity says, man, reparations should close the racial wealth gap. So whatever number, and I'm not talking about in the thousands, Dr. Watkins, because some people want to call a reparations program, Dr. Ma'at, in California, they're giving people $1,000. That's a reparations program. That's not a reparations program. Oh, Dr. Ma'at, they're giving some citizens over here $500. That's no, a reparations program should be designed to close the racial wealth gap that exists between Blacks and whites. That is an effective reparations program. It has to close the racial wealth gap that exists between us and them. And we're talking trillions of dollars, Dr. Watkins, not thousands, hundred thousands, not millions, billions, but trillions of dollars. Seems like you want to jump in there, Doc.
No, I mean, let me jump in on that point. My conclusion on this, Dr. Mott, is that that's a big part of the reason that our reparations case is seen so differently by the world, not just because I'm just convinced that the world just does not like Black people. We love everybody else. We give them our money, give them our votes, and don't ask for nothing because we try to be accepted so badly. But I don't think they like us very much. But on top of that, if you compare the amount of money that they owe us, if you compare it to what they gave the Japanese, or even compare it to what they gave the Holocaust survivors, it's of many orders of magnitude higher. It's an amount of money that would be about a third of the national debt. I think that the national debt's 37 trillion, and we really are owed about 14 trillion. That's the estimate that I've seen, and so I think that that's part of it too. Is that the amount is just so massive that they're like, what the hell are we gonna do with this? What are we gonna do with this? And but that doesn't mean we don't have the conversation. We don't keep pushing the issue. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that's interesting, I'd like to get your take on this, is I think critical thinking skills from people like yourself and others is important in this discussion because they're gonna come up with some BS. When they finally submit, because you see in California, the folks out there in California ain't playing. They are
No,
not. Shout out to the Black people in California. They are getting in these
absolutely.
politicians' faces. They are telling them we're gonna take your vote. And actually, this week, Dr. Cornel West is gonna be on here on Monday, I believe. I
Beautiful.
just his wife texted me. I think it's Monday. And so the movement's kind of happening. And I think that to your point, I'd like to get your thoughts on this.
Mhm.
Critical thinking skill is important because we have to really sort of be clear about what we really want. I think really people like yourself have to be involved in the conversation. People like a Dr. Claude Anderson, I'd be happy to contribute. Sandy
Absolutely.
Darity and others, and you know what they're not going to do that. Well, if it or they finally start having that conversation, they're gonna say, "Okay, Al Sharpton, what do you think we should do for Black people?" And that's not appropriate. Can I get your thoughts on some of that?
Absolutely. And right now we're hearing all kinds of proposals. I know that Kamala's pitching her opportunity economy. I'm not clear on what Donald Trump is proposing, but I
I think
know
he had
that
the platinum plan.
oh, so he's still doing he's promoting the platinum
I
plan,
don't know if
Doc.
he's still promoting the platinum plan, but I imagine that comes with a free grill if you want to get a new grill like Dame Dash or something, but
Yeah, so absolutely. So they're coming with these plans, and I'm such Doc, I'm telling you, you're reading my mind. Everyone in your class who this is a finance class, please get the color of money, Black banks in the racial wealth gap. And I know when I go like this, because of the screen, it looks like the words are in reverse, right? But it's called the color of money, Black banks in the racial wealth gap. Because a lot of the stuff that they're proposing, Dr. Watkins, they've been doing this stuff since the 1800s. A lot of the stuff, oh, we'll give you a community bank. Oh, we've been down that road before.
Mm,
with community banks. You know, we've been there. So a lot of the stuff that they're proposing, we've been there, done that, and it end up, you know, we end up not becoming the beneficiaries. Everybody else benefits but us. And that's what's happening. So you have to apply critical thinking to these policies that they are proposing because, you know, they're really slick, Dr. Watkins, with the language. So
mm,
they'll say, well, you know, we know that, and I'm not going to say any names because I know you said you didn't want to make this a politically charged discussion, but they'll
well,
say things like, oh, well, Freedmen's Bank, you know, even though, you know, it was, you know, created, you know, for free, formerly enslaved people, we want to open it up to everybody. And they'll start talking about
yeah.
minorities. And before you know it, everybody's benefiting from something that something that was created for us. And see,
Mhm,
that's when critical thinking comes into place. We got to be able to carefully analyze these policies and how they are going to impact us directly. And when you
mhm,
start reading the fine line, you say, this is not a good, it sounds good on the surface. And I don't want to get
mhm,
into other policy, $25,000 down payment. It looks good on the surface, but when you start reading between the lines, and again, that's your critical thinking kicking in, you say, okay,
mhm,
this is not really a good policy. This is not a policy that's going to impact Black people the way they think. This is really going to impact middle class, not the working poor, but the middle class or upper middle class, or it's really going to impact, you know, other minorities, right? The
mhm,
immigrants that are coming over, the migrants that are coming over, you know, not non-Black people. And so you start seeing that when you critically think, when you critically analyze these policies that they are proposing, Doc.
mm. Well, Dr. Oya Maat, I'm gonna keep saying your name because I want everybody who's coming in late to know who I'm talking to. Um, so that's a good point, Dr. Maat. And one point that you made that I thought was interesting is you talked about how the whole conversation on reparations has been racialized.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
It's now become a Black thing. You know, when people think about reparations, they have racialized reparations. They think that it's a Black thing. If you talk to, see, a lot of people talk about how we have been miseducated. They have miseducated us, and we start talking about the miseducation of the Negro. I mean, miseducation of the Negro, right? By Dr.
Mm,
Carter G. Woodson. They have miseducated us, but we have to understand that white folks they're just as miseducated as we are. White
mm,
ignorance is a thing, and the media is complicit in that. The media and the
mm,
education system, they are complicit in maintaining white ignorance. And so
mm,
white folks, the average white person, when they hear reparations, they think of Black people in slavery. They're not
mm,
thinking of, you know, a debt that's owed, something
mm,
that must be repaid because of an atrocity that happened. That's not racial. That's a human thing. It's not, reparations isn't a Black thing, but in the minds of the average white person, when they hear reparations, they think Black people in slavery, and it's a human thing. It's a debt. It's the I don't want to frame it as anything moral because it is a debt, but it's the
mhm,
right thing to do, and it's a debt that's owed that must be repaid. It must be paid. And so that's what I meant when I said, Doc, they have racialized reparations. So to the point where in the minds of white folks, they think it's a Black thing and it's a slavery thing. No, it's a debt and it's a redress, it's a repair thing. That's what it is. And so that's what I meant by that. And Doc, I wanted to say something that I did not mention earlier when I was talking about why we're old. I mentioned slavery, I mentioned Jim Crow, I mentioned systemic racism. And because of all of those things, we in the Black community, um, we lack transformative assets, and
mm,
we also lack parental welfare. This was a book that really helped me understand what is going on, the condition of us, why we are what we are. It's called The Hidden Cost of Being an African American: How Wealth Perpetuates Inequality. This book is a
mm,
must read. And what it helped me to understand is that literally, because of the color of our skin, because we are Black Americans, when we're born, we're born with a cost. It's a cost associated with being a Black American. That means that more than
mm,
likely in your family, you don't have transformative assets, and you probably don't have parental welfare. Now, let me define real quick, Dr. Watkins, what I mean by transformative assets and
Mm.
parental welfare. It says right here, says to get a better analytic handle on this phenomenon, he said, I will use the concept of transformative assets, inherited wealth lifting a family beyond their own achievements. I'm going to say that again. It's wealth lifting a family beyond their own achievements. See, a lot of white folks, and in this book, I saw it, a lot of white folks, that in terms of income, they make what we're making or less. But the difference between us and them, the difference between us and them is that they have transformative assets. So they might be living in great grandma's house or great granddaddy's house that's paid off. So guess what? They don't have a mortgage. They're just paying land taxes and utilities. When it's time for their children to go to college or their children to buy a house, they can just grab the equity out of grandma and grandpa's house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Average Black family does not have transformative assets that we can use to do things like that. And then
Mm-hmm.
also parental welfare. Let me define real quick what parental welfare is and give thanks to my mother. I got a lot of that parental welfare growing up. You know, my mother, she struggled, she did, but she was, here it is. I think it's page 61. Hold on, Doc. I want to get the right definition for parental welfare. Yeah, parental welfare. It says, well, they call it parental wealth. So it says the name of the chapter says parental welfare, but it says parental wealth. The parental wealth measure captures the capacity of parents to give their children a head start on life. So being able to buy your child a car, give them a decent savings account, you know, some stocks. And you talk about that a lot on your platform, Dr. Watkins. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
listening to you over a decade. That's why my son Jalen to this day has stocks. He's on Robinhood. He has over
Nice.
250 shares of stocks and he's 14 years old. And I
Nice.
did that because of listening to you. That is parental wealth. Okay. The measure, it says, is a measure that captures the capacity of parents to give their children a head start on life. A lot of us did not have that. My mother did not have that. My grandmother was born in 1933. And during that time period, Black women could do two things: domestic work or be school teachers, right? And so
Mm.
my grandmother was a domestic worker. She dropped out of school in the fifth or sixth grade. She worked on what she called the tobacco farms in Sumter County, South Carolina. That's where my maternal lineage is from, Sumter County, South Carolina. So she worked on what we say the tobacco farms. And so she had to do that, and she did not graduate from high school. She ended up relocating. She was among that great migration that took place between 1915 and 1970, those Blacks that left out of the South and they went to different places. And she was among, I think, the second wave of the great migration. She ended up in Baltimore, and she used to clean the homes, my mother said, of Jewish people. She would scrub their homes for work. And then she ended up getting a job working in the laundry department at Shepherd Prayer Hospital. So my grandmother she could not give her 7 children parental wealth, you know, but what she did was make sure that all 7 of them graduated from high school. And then my mother went on to become a teacher. And one day, she actually taught her mother how to read and write. So my grandmother could not give her the parental wealth, but she gave her the guidance, the wisdom, and the knowledge to get ahead. And in turn, my mother was able to give me some parental wealth, which is why, and my father, which is why I'm sitting here today. But that's what happened with us, Dr. Boyce Watkins. So in our families, we lack a lot of us, the average Black family, lack transformative wealth, transformative assets. And we also lack parental wealth, a parent being able to give their children 20, 30, 40, 50,000 for a down payment. And I always say this, and I'm going to land my plane. The baby boomers, give thanks. This is the largest wealth transfer ever. The baby boomers were the first generation. They got their homes. A lot of them, their homes are paid off. They got pensions. They're retiring. They said that this is the largest wealth transfer in American history. So if you're not tied to a boomer that has these things, then what will become of you in years to come? I'm going to land my plane.
Mm. I love it. I love it. I hope y'all understand why I was so happy to bring Dr. Maad in here. Give her flowers because that's such valuable information. And you're right, that wealth transfer is happening now. The boomers, it's actually starting as a wealth transfer from men to women because men we don't take care of ourselves and we end up croaking and then we give our money to our wives. And then it's going to be a transfer from the boomers to Gen X. That's our generation
Right.
and it's in the trillions, the absolute
Yeah.
trillions. So women, I think, will have probably more economic power than they've ever had in history, which I ain't nothing wrong with that. And then also, there's whenever there's a wealth transfer, whenever money's moving around, there's opportunity there, there's possibility there. And one thing that's interesting, Dr. Mott, when you talk about things like reparations, is I sometimes I'll be walking. One time I was walking through Denver and I just looked around and I looked at all the skyscrapers I saw in Denver. Or there's so many buildings. They don't have actual skyscrapers because they have
Mhm.
laws, but the buildings can't get too tall because they want to be able to see the mountains. But any city, you look at all the big buildings that cost, hundreds of millions of dollars, some of them billions of dollars. And I say, isn't it amazing that we don't even think about the fact that if I do that, if I go through New York City and just look at the thousands of skyscrapers that there are,
Mhm.
I bet you almost none of them belong to black people. Not
Right.
one, right? And really in a perfect state of the world, we would own 10% of those. You could every 10 buildings, every 10 skyscrapers, you say, oh yeah, there's a black family that owns that, or there's a black owned corporation that owns that. But we were just locked out. We were locked out of the multi-trillion dollar thing called America. And now we've sort of been brought in, but we're brought in as the servants, as the slaves. We're brought in kind of in the basement of America. And that's what integration was all about. Integration was about them sort of we were kind of brought in the way the immigrants are kind of being brought in. Like they're not letting people across the border so they can go take over companies and own property. They're bringing them in so they can go pick grapes and tomatoes and that's why they want everybody coming in. And I feel like in a way that's kind of like we were kind of originally in that group where they were like, yeah, we want black people here, but only because we need them to strengthen the economy.
That's
You
all it
know,
was.
and this is one of the big tricks when you talk about the public fool system. You are being fooled because the goal of that system is to make sure that you play your position, that you know your role. When I mentioned earlier that the world doesn't like black people very much, I don't think they always dislike us. I think they like us as long as we know our place. You know,
Absolutely.
right. If you showing up, if you're a black man and you showing up as an athlete, a comedian, or some toxic rapper that's rapping about murdering black people, oh, they're gonna love you. They'll give you lots of money and tell you how great you are. But when you show up as a critical thinker and you start saying, well, I don't want to, I can't rap and I don't want to rap about murdering my own people. Maybe
Right.
I'll rap about murdering your people. How about that? Right? How about we rap about getting some revenge? Right? And then suddenly everything, oh, no. We're okay with you talking about killing black people, but you talking about killing us, and that ain't cool. We can't pay you for that. Right? So really, and again, just to be clear, I don't want to kill nobody.
Right. No, 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 no,
We
no.
just here just talking. We gonna murder them with knowledge. That's what we gonna do. But
That's right.
anyway, so the point of the matter is to say that this speaks to, and I think that you are among the most qualified to address this issue.
That's
We got
right.
to educate our own kids.
That's
I,
right.
I don't understand why we can't embrace that idea. We just have to be able to think outside the box. It does not it may not necessarily show up in the form of us building a bunch of schools per se, even though that's possible. But until then, you got a lot of things you actually, and I'd love for you to talk about some of that, like Meltrek and some other things that you have in place. You have a professor, you are a professor. You have a real PhD. I have a PhD. There are thousands of us out here that are good educators who have stuff in place that our people can embrace. Tell us about what you're doing and then I'd like for you to address sort of the psychological hurdle of us even believing that we're capable of educating our own. Please.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Dad, you just be like, like you throw me the ball. What they call it, the alley oop? Is that what they call it? You just
Yep.
go like that,
I'm Steph
boom.
Curry and I'm gonna throw it up in the air.
Yes.
You could
I'm
be
just like,
LeBron
yes.
or what's the one that plays for the Chicago Sky? I forget. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I'm just like, thank you. Like this is right up my alley. Yeah, educate. We have to educate our babies. Right now, 83% of teachers in the public school domain are white. What is that saying? That's saying that the responsibility and of the development of the mind of Black children are in the hands of middle class white women. I want you to think about that, Dr. Watkins. 83% of school teachers are white middle aged women. What does that mean? That means that the future consciousness of us, Black people, is literally in the hands of white women. And you all should read the book, They Were Her Property by Dr. Stephanie Rogers. Oh boy. Anyway, in the hands of white women. And so we had to take ownership of developing the consciousness of our children. That's their education. Education, see, a lot of us think it's just something that you get, it's the passport to a great future. It's just something you get. Man, when you educate someone, you're socializing this individual. You're grooming this person to think a certain type of way. You are you are embedding the culture in them, politics. A worldview is being developed. It's so much that happens during the education process. Values, morals, worldview, goals, all of this happens doing personality. I'm sorry, Doc. I just get excited. Personality. All of these things are being inculcated in that person when you educate that person. So when you allow outsiders to educate your babies, these outsiders are in control of your morals, your values, your worldview, your culture. Come on, man. We can't do that. We can't do that. When you talk about Black liberation and sovereignty and advancement, and then you sending your children to be educated by the same folks that you say are oppressing you, I made the decision, or we made the decision in my household, to take my son Jalen out of the full system. Sixth grade year, I had enough. He was 11 years old. I had enough. And I put our son in the Uhuru Academy. The Uhuru Academy, I always say that's the number one if Black online education school. The Uhuru Academy, which is run by a husband and wife team, Baba Amin and Mama Nkoyo. Jalen is now 14. This is his third year in the school, and he loves it. He loves that it is centered around our history, our culture, our psychology, and our interests. Our children need to be in our schools. And I know some of us used to say, well, I don't live near an African Center school or a pro-Black school. I don't live near one. Black center schools are online now. And during the pandemic, we didn't have a choice, Dr. Watkins. Remember, during the pandemic, they shut the school system and they were teaching online, And so people say, well, Doc, well, what about the social aspect? Your child is doing, he's doing, school online and he's getting that. But what about his social life? He has a family. He plays football during football season, basketball during basketball season. He goes to church with my mother. He's active in the community. During the summer, he attends 2 to 3 summer camps. So he has a social life. So a lot of us, Doc, we make all kinds of excuses. Well, the real deal is this. Be afraid to change. People are very monotonous. We're used to the same old thing. My mother sent me to public school. I'm going to send my children to public school. We're routine. Humans are monotonous. It's routine. It's routine. No, just because you went to public school, you don't have to send your child. You have options. We have options, and we need to understand what our options are, Doc, and not be afraid to explore our options. Public school is not the only option. We can educate ourselves. We have. What do you think they did? What do you think we did prior to the inception of the public school system? What do you think they did? There's documentation of us on plantations teaching. Prior, post emancipation, there's documentation out there. People getting all the kids at a schoolhouse, up the street. Or they said one brother was a teacher. He was teaching on a rock. He used to bring the children. They used to bring the children to the rock. And we've always educated ourselves. So I think bottom line is a lot of us are scared, Doc. I mean, let's tell the truth. We are afraid of change. That's what it is. A lot of us are really scared, and we don't want to admit that. We don't want to admit that. We are afraid of change. And we need to overcome that fear and understand that it's our responsibility to educate our babies. It's our responsibility. Our babies aren't even receiving education right now. What they are receiving in the public school system is miseducation. How do I know it's miseducation? Because when they grow up, they act against their own self or best interest. That's how I know they've been miseducated. See, educated people don't do that. When you're educated, you act in the best interest of yourself. And by self, I don't mean individualism. By self, I mean collectivism. So the best interest of self, the best interest of Black people. See, when you act against your best interest, you're miseducated, because
Mm,
educated people don't do that.
mm.
Education empowers you. Miseducation disempowers you. So we have to understand that our children aren't receiving education right now. They are receiving miseducation. They are being trained. They are being schooled. They are being indoctrinated. Okay.
Hmm.
And so I land my plane there.
Yeah, I mean it's to your point, it's you know the power teachers are very powerful because teachers don't just teach you how to do things, they teach you why you should do these things and who you should be doing them for. So sometimes a highly educated Negro can be more dangerous than an uneducated Black person.
Come on.
If you have that education and you've been taught to use all of your skill, all your resources, in to help other people, to do things for other people, or in sometimes even against the interests of your own people. I mean, there's a lot of highly educated Negroes that work for BET, who get excited every time the BET Awards get 10 million viewers or whatever, and they made money from all these big white corporate sponsors that say, "Oh, that was great. Bring Sexy Red on. Keep her on there longer next time." And there's no consciousness. There's no critical thinking about the what in economics we might refer to as the externalities, which is like almost like a type of social pollution that you're creating because you got this massive corporate powerhouse that's making all this money, but you're destroying the community in the process. You're creating millions of little girls who want to grow up and ride up and down the stripper pole and get pregnant by whoever, and just whatever, and embrace a culture that is not going to lead them to peace, success, freedom, or happiness. And that's a problem. That's something that people like yourself and I think I feel like it's our job to kind of speak on that. And I know that it gets political, right? Like even when you use a term like school choice, they make that politically charged. Oh, you sound like a Republican. You sound like a Trump supporter. No, no, we want people to be free. Freedom means choice. Freedom means options. Ain't nothing wrong. Ain't nothing. If you got an issue with Black people being free, then I got an issue with you. And so ultimately, another area where they make it political is they might look at you and hear you talk and they say, "Oh, she's from the conscious community." And the conscious that's dangerous. And I don't know if you ever had anybody define you as I've been called dangerous my whole life, and I'm like, where am I dangerous? I ain't hurt nobody. Like, what are you talking about? I love people. I love the babies, and but at the same time, you got a thug on stage talking about he gonna murder everybody in your whole family, and that's your favorite Black man. But
Right.
I'm dangerous.
Right.
You're
But I'm
dangerous. But
dangerous. But I'm
right. What makes it
dangerous.
well, we know why we dangerous. We dangerous because we see right through your bullshit.
That's
And
right.
you don't like that. You're like, dang, these are our Negroes. We own these people. These are our pets. We got our pets doing exactly what we want. They are well trained to follow instructions, even if it's leading them to a path of their own self-destruct, even if it's taking them all right down the pathway to hell, economic hell, spiritual hell, family hell, social hell, educational hell. We got them trained to ride the stairway to hell.
Mhm.
And here you are coming along upsetting the apple cart. You're
Mhm.
just simply waking them up out of the trance and saying, "Hey, why are you doing that? Why would you why would you promote an artist that wants young black men to die or be hooked on drugs?
That part, that part.
Why would you dedicate your life to working for businesses that do nothing for your community and are gonna leave you broke after you don't work 50 years? You don't work 50 years your whole life and you got less wealth than a newborn baby. How the hell is that? How's that benefiting you? How's that
Right.
working out for you?
That's right.
And you got 100,000 in student loans from that big white university that overcharge you to go to school. So my thing is, it's a war. It really is a war.
Yes, it is.
And I'll say that I love the fact that I got some fellow soldiers out here like yourself, and everybody in this
Absolutely,
room is
absolutely.
is is in this battle, and all of you. I know that it takes a special kind of person to participate in conversations like this, because let's just be clear, this is seen as radical. And I'll tell you something.
It is. It really is.
Well, I'll tell you something, Doctor. When I was on the faculty of Syracuse, I remember that was when I met Dr. Claude Anderson in 2006.
Hmm.
And I remember our first conversation, I think I said it was at the Black Family Conference in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown. And I remember just kind of talking to him, and I said, yeah, well, you know how it is when you start being pro-black, they call you radical and everything else. And he said, ain't nothing wrong with being radical. He said, you're supposed to be radical. You know, he said, that's good. That's a compliment. And it really made me rethink what it means to be radical. He said, because he was like, basically like, if what are you trying to do? You're trying to just fit in to a system that isn't working and fit
Mm.
into a culture that's losing. You're trying to just maintain the status quo. You know, we cannot.
Mm-mm.
What are we going to sit around and be a bunch of conservatives and try to conserve the
Right.
way things are? No, we need to all sort of say, okay, no, we're not doing this anymore.
That's
And
right.
critical thinking to me, and I'm gonna let you. I'd like to let you get the last word, because I definitely want us to know how to follow up with you and stay in touch. Um, to me, critical thinking means that you really assess. The instructions are real simple for me. And
Hmm.
everybody write this down if you have, you may have heard me say something like this before. Look in all the areas that represent your quality of life. I encourage you to start with health, wealth, and relationships. Look
Mm.
at your mental and physical health. Do you feel that the life that you live optimizes your mental health? I say for Black folks, our mental health is not optimized. We
No,
crazy.
not at all.
A lot of us have crazy trauma everywhere. You in Baltimore, people getting
Yes.
shot up, babies getting, crazy stuff,
Yep.
drugs and everything, right? Mental health healing is an absolute must. That has to be part.
Absolutely.
Yes, that has to be part of our reparations plan. The part that we implement, we gonna implement our reparations. The repair ain't just something that's gonna be done by white folks. We can
No.
repair ourselves as well until they get on board. So mental health, physical health, right? You look at the garbage that they feed us, right? This is capitalism. We're gonna feed you all the cheeseburgers and fried chicken we possibly can until you are 45 years old and you're starting to keel over because you got the health of an 80-year-old, right?
Mm.
So physical health, we have to be conscious of that. And by the way, brother Nuri Muhammad, I spoke to him this morning. He's going to be in next week. I want y'all to know we bringing the heavyweights up in here. These are my seniors
Ashe.
right here. Dr. Maad is one of them. And then you go into relationships, right? Broken families everywhere, trauma, people fighting each other, disagreeing. And I think that's something that I want everybody to evaluate that and figure out, like, what does that mean? Remember, there's a science to that. My wife is a therapist and she's a relationship counselor. So
Hmm.
there is this whole science to how to choose healthy relationships and maintain them. And that starts with family. It starts with your spouse. It's with your friends. It starts with business partners. Me and Dr. Maat have a relationship.
Absolutely.
And there is a protocol. There's a code of conduct that we aim for. In that she came in and you were giving me all these props and thanking me, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I was thanking you, giving you props, and that's us feeding. We're investing in each other.
Absolutely.
Because think about it, process this, Dr. Mott. We could have both been a couple haters. You could be up in here like, who this guy think he is? I'm smarter than him. I'm gonna
Right.
show him up. And I'm
Right.
like, well, she gonna take my spot. She better than me. Whatever. Like, that's silly, right? Like
It
you
is
have.
silly.
Right, right. So ultimately, it really, and even consciously, like me reaching out to bring you in, there are things we have to. It's interesting, like even little things like I'm gonna be vulnerable and confess that, like, one of the problems I had from my trauma
Mm.
is, I think as a kid I had a thing with rejection. And
Mm.
I don't know. I think about a couple things. I got to really figure that out. I'm not going to give TMI because I ain't trying to be too vulnerable right now, because I'm
No, no,
being a,
no. I get it. I'm with you because I
but
had an issue.
really,
I struggled
and,
with that as well. Mhm.
and what it did was it made me like just fiercely independent. Because you don't want to
Mm.
ask for help, because you don't have people just say no or whatever and go through that frustration. So you just say, I got this. I'm gonna do this myself. I'm gonna do this myself. And I
And
found a
mine
lot.
was the opposite. Mine was the opposite, the craving of acceptance, wanting to be
Oh,
accepted. So you were like, you went one way and you wanted to be independent. You were like, I'm independent. Mine was wanting to feel accepted, you know.
oof.
Yeah.
That, yeah, those things, like, these are tough conversations we have to have with ourselves, because if you think about it, I believe collectively as Black people, it's our desire to be accepted that becomes one of our greatest liabilities.
Mm.
That's what causes us to sell out and get excited because because we got an Oscar or a Grammy or Employee of the Year, right? Or when Joe Biden puts out something and he says, "Thank you to Black people for getting me elected," and we're like, "We did it! Black women saved you again." And I'm not, no disrespect, no problem with anybody who voted for Biden, but it
Right,
was
right, right.
like, but before you save him, let's say save yourself.
That's
Save
right.
your kids,
That's
save your
right.
community first, then save him, right? So I kind of feel like we want everybody to tell us that we are important, that we matter. That's why you might see somebody, they'll spend a lot of money buying expensive European products so we can have that label on us to say, look, I made it. I'm important. Look at the car I drive. Look at the job I have. Look at the
Right.
university I attended. Look at the clothes on my back, right? And then the name on the label on these clothes, right? So that need for acceptance, I think a lot of us go through that. And so in fact, one of the most dangerous types of Black people, in my opinion, is one who really knows who they are and has accepted themselves and does not need anybody's acceptance. Then you can
Mm.
kind of walk through the world and you like, what? I'm gonna do what needs to be done. I don't care what none of y'all think. Right.
Right.
So
Right.
you are right. So that was the benefit of kind of going in that other direction of rugged individualism for me,
Right.
is
Right.
that
Right.
I trained myself to not give a damn what
Mm.
think about me. I don't care. I don't want to teach at your universities. I don't want to get on your TV shows. I don't want none of that. In fact, when it happens, when they grab me, but here's the problem though. You get too
Mm-mm.
used to that. So like the other day I spoke at a UPS, right? The Black
Okay.
employees invite me in, and I was like, I don't want to go to UPS. Like, my friend had to talk me into it. I was like, I don't want to be around those people. That's the lack of balance though. That's the downside of that extreme. And what I really would like is just to be balanced, where you're not carrying there's so much baggage that comes with being Black sometimes,
Absolutely.
and the last area I'll throw in there, and then I like Dr. Maat to take us out is in terms of measuring your quality of life. We talk about health, wealth, and relationships. So we talked about health and relationships, and y'all know what it is when it comes to wealth. We got you. We got you. Dr. Mahat knows a lot about wealth. My doctorate's in wealth, and basically at the end of the day, it's real simple. Do you have enough income to cover your bills, ethically, and do you have financial security to protect you in case something goes bad, in case
Right.
that man doesn't want you at that job anymore, or in case something goes wrong in your personal life financially? This is why we invest, and we're doing this for ourselves. We're also doing it for our children because that's what we're going to be. This pain and trauma that we went through in this generation, we're not passing that on to the kids. We're not doing that. So, Dr. Mahat, tell me where people can follow up with you and just see more of what you're doing because your work is amazing.
Before I do that, Doc, I want to give you your flowers. Doc, I'm telling you, you are a brilliant and amazing brother. I've
Wow.
learned
Thank you.
so much from listening. I've been listening to you over a decade now. And let me tell you real
Wow.
quick, just being candid about something. You were promoting Bitcoin years ago. This was years ago. But you were promoting it. I think it was like barely like $3,000. And I kept hearing you talk about it. You was like, I'm telling you, just get a share. And I was like, man, I don't really got the money. I called my auntie up. I'm like, auntie, Dr. Watkins is talking about this Bitcoin. I think we, should invest. I ain't got 3,000. Won't you put up the money? She's like, girl, I ain't got it. Da, 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 da. And then it got up to $65,000. So I wish that I would have called pops and called mommy and got that $3,000 up and got more than that. Because I mean, you've given out a lot of great financial advice. You also talked, and I mean, decades ago, you was like, stop buying your children toys. Don't buy your children toys. Buy them stocks, buy them this, buy them that. Jalen's tell you, I stopped. Nope, we're not doing the games. We're not doing this. For your birthday, you're going to get STEM kits. You're going to get a savings account. So by the time you're 18, you got 10,000 in your savings account. You're getting stocks, STEM kits, and books. And he'll tell you he's in school right now, but I'll bring him on camera. He'll tell you it's stopped. Dr.
Wow.
Watkins, I thank you for the wisdom and the knowledge that you have given the global Black community. This stuff, the stuff that you're doing is global.
Wow.
You got brothers and sisters listening to you around the world. And I just want to say publicly, I thank you for who you are and what you mean to us. You know what I mean? You mean a lot
Wow.
to us. And you've been stomping for Black wealth. You've been stomping. We need to create wealth. We need to create wealth. We need to create businesses. And you've been out there on the front lines consistently consistently. And I want to say I thank you from the bottom of my heart. And also thank you for opening up your platform to me. And this is not the first time you did it. I've been on your platform a couple of times. Like I said, you brought me to the All Black National Convention, put me on the panel to speak on media manipulation, blessed me with a wonderful award that I show my students every semester. I show them this award. Doc, I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. I thank you. And I'm
Wow.
grateful for you. I'm also grateful for your listening audience. You all could have been anywhere right now, but nearly 1,000 of you are tuned in. And this is the place that you need to be for the best advice for you, for Black families. And so you could have been anywhere doing anything, but I thank you for opening up your mind to us. So I always tell people, I thank you for your mind. And I
Mm.
thank you for your behind. The last thing that I want to say is please, family, the last thing I want to say, family, is please support the work. Okay. I'm wearing a shirt that says conscious ingenuity. This is a pro-Black, Black-centered STEAM program that was designed to make sure that our children are prepared to successfully matriculate through these programs when they get to college, through a STEM program, even STEAM programs, just preparing them. So make sure that you get your child enrolled in Conscious Ingenuity. You can go to consciousingenuity.com. And Doc, I know you have the link, so you'll put them in the video. Go to consciousingenuity.com, sign up for our email list. Okay, you'll love the website. I have Black engineers going into our communities teaching STEM, young Black people 18 to 22. So right now, with Conscious Ingenuity, Dr. Watkins is doing is bridging the gap between Black college students and also in the community, and Black engineering professionals in the community. Because a lot of times they get their degrees, and what do? We go work for white corporations. We forget about the community. We move out to the suburbs, and that's that. Right now, we're bridging that gap. I have students who are working at Northrop Grumman, students who are down. I have one student, he's getting trained in Mexico, but they're in industry. And you know what? They teach for Dr. Ma'at. Even to this day, they teach and they go into the community. So we're bridging the gap to make sure that our children are prepared. So support Conscious Ingenuity. Also, family, support the Meltrek program. Please go to Meltrek 365. Support the Meltrek program. We actually just dropped our third film, Meltrek Exploring the Ma'afa Part 1, The Arrival of the Portuguese. Meltrek is a series that is teaching Black history from a Black perspective. And it's an animated children's series that's doing that. So we're targeting the babies, making sure we teach what we call corrective history. Lastly, family, make sure that you get your son enrolled in the Asafo training camp and your daughter enrolled in the Agoji training camp. These are camps that focus on critical thinking, the development of critical thinking skills, and also character and leadership skills. So make sure you get your baby enrolled in what I call all of these youth empowerment programs. With that said, thank you so much, Dr. Watkins, for having me. Peace. And I always say Black excellence. Peace and Black excellence.
Yes. Yes. Well, by the way, everybody, I put some links in the chat for you all to take a look at. And also we will bring this back so that everybody can get a chance to take a look at this. And also, what is your Instagram, Dr. Mott?
It's
Did,
Dr.Maat underscore. So Dr.Maat underscore. That is my
it,
IG. And also, family, check me out on my YouTube channel, Dr. Oyamaat. All you got to do is go to the search engine, type in Dr. Oyamaat, and it'll pop up. So make sure you check out my YouTube channel.
all right. And you'll see her name on the screen. So give me a quick yes if you're going to go and follow or support something. Let's be conscious and let's be clear. Just give me a yes. Again, you could buy something if you want to, but if you can't, at least you can pay attention. If you can't pay money, just pay attention. Because and the reason it's important, the reason I'm consciously asking you all to put that yes in the chat is because it's not easy to get the attention of our people if you're not into like foolishness and silly stuff and
Right.
destructive stuff, right? And so again, I had no problem with the rappers that have 20 million followers that they're where they talk about their baby's mamas and who they shot yesterday or whatever it is that they might
Right.
talk about. That's fine, they can do what they're going to do, but I really think that we got to bring our scholars to the table. You have thinkers in your community that are really doing great work, that are deeply committed, and Dr. Maat's one of them. And I would say thank you, Dr. Maat, for coming in and hanging out with us.
Thank you
It was
so
a
much,
pleasure
Doc.
having you here,
I
and we will
appreciate
do
you.
this again. And everybody have a great day. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling good and black and strong.
Same here,
And
Doc. Same
yes,
here.
yes. And also tonight, Constance Carter. You all have met Constance Carter. That's another person that we partner with who's extraordinary in real estate, stuff like that. She's doing another free event tonight at 8 p.m. on for those that are interested in multifamily property, stuff like that. So I'll text that out to you as well. So have a good day, everybody. And don't forget, if you want to get on the text list, if you are not on there yet, text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. Text morning to 87948 so that you can remain connected. We'll bring you into the private Zoom and we can do this. We do this every single day, 7 days a
Wow.
week, 10 a.m. Eastern. That's what we do. We're all serious about this. So thank you, Dr. Mott,
Thank
and
you,
everybody
Dr.
have a great
Watkins.
day.
Have a good one.
100%. Yeah,
Peace and
bless
love.
you. All right, take
Thank
care.